Imagine discovering that for decades, governments have kept from you a capability that, if unleashed, could expand your mind beyond time and space. This isn't science fiction or ancient mythology. It's a documented fact, though obscured by the shadows of official history. What would you do if you knew you could access any place in the universe, past, present, or future, simply through the power of your consciousness? This isn't an empty promise or a spiritual fantasy. It's the foundation of remote viewing, a trained and refined practice employed by agencies like the CIA, involving millions of dollars and dozens of secret specialists during the Cold War. Deep within each of us, beyond our self-imposed limitations, lies an invisible radar, a mental antenna capable of reaching realities our eyes have never seen. This secret has been guarded for years, not because it's dangerous, but because it's too liberating. It all started with suspicions. In an era where power was measured in nuclear warheads and espionage, a more subtle concern began to trouble military strategists. What if the Soviets were accessing information from the United States through the mind? Could it be possible to obtain secret data without technology, without infiltrators, without violating borders, simply by projecting consciousness? This hypothesis, initially dismissed as absurd, began to gain traction when consistent reports of inexplicable experiences emerged. Men and women described images, locations, numbers, and details that were impossible to uncover through conventional methods. The discomfort grew, and where there is discomfort, there is investigation. Curiosity turned into urgency. In the mid-1970s, the U.S. Department of Defense authorized research at prestigious institutions like the Stanford Research Institute. The goal was clear, though never publicly acknowledged, to explore the potential of the human mind as a tool for espionage. Thus, the Stargate program was born, a name that today sounds like it belongs in a movie, yet for years it represented absolute secrecy and unexpected outcomes. At the heart of this project were trained mediums, baffled scientists, and military personnel astonished by the results. Something that defied all the laws of physics seemed to be unfolding right before their eyes and in their minds. Remote viewing isn't an esoteric skill, it's a trainable process. It requires focus, inner silence, and discipline. It doesn't rely on beliefs, religions, or doctrines. Instead, it hinges on practice. The military found that even skeptical individuals with the right training could develop the ability to see beyond the physical realm. While the body remained still, the mind could travel, crossing continents, penetrating secret vaults, and anticipating military movements. And perhaps most startling of all, it worked. Classified reports revealed hits with a level of accuracy that statistically defied coincidence. What were once dismissed as mere delusions became uncomfortable evidence that something greater was at play. Gradually, leaks began to surface. Academic articles hinted at unusual phenomena. Retired military personnel let slip fragments of truth. One even claimed, "The human mind is the most advanced technology we've ever had at our disposal, and we didn't even know it." What had been kept secret for national security reasons started to attract the attention of spiritual seekers, curious individuals, and scientists outside the traditional system. The fascination grew. How could something so extraordinary be kept from the public? And even more importantly, why? The answer is simple yet devastating: control. If remote viewing were widely known and practiced, it would create a massive rift in the existing power structure. Picture millions of people able to access truths for themselves without intermediaries, manipulation, or filters. Imagine an ordinary person trained to sense the truth anywhere in the universe. The belief system would collapse. The very notion of reality would become subjective, expanded, and limitless. And the fear of this has always outweighed the desire for liberation. It's important to understand, we're not talking about a paranormal gift. We're discussing a birthright. The human consciousness, when free from anxiety, mental clutter, and fear, possesses abilities that defy the laws of matter. Remote viewing is just one of the ways to tap into this truth. However, it's one of the most researched, documented, and validated methods. Now slowly, it is beginning to emerge from the depths of institutional silence into the awakening of humanity. Those who took part in the secret programs don't speak easily about their experiences. Some carry deep-seated traumas. Others are filled with fear. Many have been publicly discredited, labeled as crazy, conspiracy theorists, or mystics. But the truth doesn't need defending, it simply needs to be revealed. And when it is, it creates a silent earthquake in the hearts of those who listen attentively. What these men and women have uncovered through their accounts and records is that there is something within us that transcends flesh, space, and time, something that connects us to everything. A remote vision is an invitation, a call to look beyond the veil of the visible. It asks us, what are you willing to see, knowing that nothing is beyond your reach? Perhaps what frightens us most isn't the ability to glimpse the other side of the world, but the responsibility of realizing that this has always been within you. The secret, after all, was never theirs. It has always been ours. And now, the veil begins to tear. Long before the government's secret programs were established, and even before concepts like military intelligence or psychic espionage existed, humanity had an intuitive and profound understanding that the mind could reach into the unseen. In caves, temples, and stone circles scattered across the globe, shamans, oracles, and spiritual masters accessed hidden realities through altered states of consciousness. They journeyed with their souls, communicated with entities beyond the physical realm, glimpsed the future, and unveiled truths that eluded ordinary perception. These insights were not mere superstition, they were part of an ancient science, a technology of the soul that gradually faded away, silenced by the rise of empires, institutionalized religions, and power structures that feared humanity's direct connection to the divine. Ancient peoples did not distinguish between mind and spirit. For them, everything was consciousness. Practices of inner vision were intertwined with healing, agriculture, social organization, and the interpretation of cosmic cycles. The Egyptians spoke of the Eye of Horus, a symbol of perception that transcends physical sight. The Hindus mapped the chakras, energy centers that govern the subtle functions of being. Among indigenous peoples in the Americas, the shaman was the one who could see with the eyes of the soul, able to traverse different worlds in search of wisdom, healing, and guidance. Remote viewing, though known by another name, was already a revered and established practice. However, over time, those who sought to control access to the unseen worked to suppress these truths. The mysteries of ancient schools, such as those in Eleusis, Greece, or the teachings of the Essenes, concealed codes for accessing expanded perception. Initiates underwent intense rites of purification and silence, learning to listen to what cannot be expressed in words. For centuries, these traditions were preserved by only a select few. The majority of the population, steeped in fear, ignorance, and the struggle for survival, was taught to look outward, to rely solely on physical senses, and to dismiss any form of knowledge that couldn't be weighed or measured. As a result, the art of seeing with the mind was pushed into the realms of mysticism, fantasy, and superstition. Yet it never ceased to exist. The concept of remote viewing, known by various names, has also been present in esoteric traditions such as Kabbalah, Sufi practices in Islam, and Gnostic writings that spoke of a divine spark capable of accessing the whole. Great masters like Jesus, Buddha, Zoroaster, and Lao Tzu exhibited gifts of non-local perception. They could see beyond time, understand the innermost thoughts of individuals, predict future events, and penetrate the truths of the heart. Their actions, often interpreted as miracles, were demonstrations of an awakened state of consciousness that transcends the physical body. In those moments, humanity glimpsed what is possible when tapping into the full potential of the mind. However, these manifestations were soon transformed into dogma, and the knowledge that supported them was locked away tightly. During the Middle Ages, the Inquisition targeted any form of perception that fell outside the Church's control. Healers, wise alchemists, and mystics were hunted down as witches. Fear became institutionalized. To see with the mind's eye became a dangerous endeavor. Thus, generation after generation, humanity was gradually disconnected from its own subtle nature. Yet the flame never completely extinguished. In remote monasteries, forgotten manuscripts, and oral traditions, knowledge was passed down in secrecy. Many sacrificed their lives to ensure it wouldn't be lost. many resisted the pull of oblivion. With the rise of the Enlightenment and modern science, a new form of repression emerged, more subtle yet equally powerful: materialistic reductionism. The mind began to be viewed solely as a product of the brain, a biological function disconnected from the whole. Anything that couldn't be replicated in a laboratory was dismissed as irrelevant. Intuition, inspiration, and altered states of consciousness were pushed to the sidelines of human experience. Yet, even in this environment, thinkers like Carl Jung emerged, daring to discuss concepts like the collective unconscious, synchronicities, and archetypes that connect us to a greater reality. The distant vision, still unnamed, continued to pulse at the edges of history. In the 19th century, with the rise of spiritualism and magnetism, researchers like Allan Kardec and Franz Mesmer began to systematically explore psychic phenomena. Reports of clairvoyance, out-of-body experiences, and communication with subtle consciousnesses started to be meticulously documented. Although these studies were often mocked by some in academia, they paved the way for a renewed understanding of the mind as a gateway. Throughout the 20th century, as depth psychology advanced, Eastern traditions made their way into the West, and scientific research into meditation progressed. The concept of non-local perception began to gain new momentum. In this context, remote viewing has made a resurgence in the modern landscape. It's not something entirely new, but rather a revival of ancient knowledge. The key difference now is that, instead of being solely guided by sages and shamans, the process is being explored by physicists, mathematicians, engineers, and military personnel. The human mind is now quantified through numbers, graphs, and statistics. Despite the limitations of this reductionist perspective, something remarkable began to surface: evidence that consciousness can indeed access information beyond physical boundaries. Unintentionally, science started to validate what the ancients had long understood. Today, we view these roots not with nostalgia, but with reverence. Each civilization that has maintained the ability to see with the mind has gifted us a piece of the map, a fragment of the puzzle, an echo of who we are. Remote viewing is a flower that blooms from these deep roots. The more we reconnect with this forgotten past, the more we realize that the future of humanity hinges on reclaiming this wisdom. For seeing beyond is a way to remember who we are, and remembering who we are is the first step toward awakening. During the height of the Cold War, when the world teetered on the brink of mutually assured destruction, the human mind became a silent battleground. The United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in not just an arms race, but a race for control over information, and, by extension, the unseen. Spy satellites, hidden microphones, infiltrated agents. These were all part of the game. Yet, behind the scenes of history, something far bolder was unfolding. Fearing that the Soviets were years ahead in psychic experiments, the CIA decided to invest heavily in mental research. The idea of accessing secret locations, anticipating military plans, and gathering intelligence without lifting a finger simply through the power of the mind seemed too outrageous to dismiss. Thus, one of the most obscure and intriguing programs in modern history was born: the Stargate Project. At first, there was skepticism. Officials and scientists struggled to accept the idea that someone could accurately describe the layout of a military building halfway across the world while in an altered state of consciousness. However, fear proved to be a stronger motivator than doubt. Intelligence reports indicated that the Russians were delving into psychic phenomena with astonishing results. The KGB had recruited mediums, trained soldiers to use extrasensory perception, and even developed manuals for psychic warfare. This Soviet psychic specter pushed the United States to seek answers, and fast. The CIA then enlisted two physicists from the Stanford Research Institute, Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ. Their mission was clear: to test, document, and validate the ability to see at a distance. They invited mediums, psychics, and ordinary people to participate in the experiments. Among them was Ingo Swann, an artist and psychic who would become foundational to the development of remote viewing as a military protocol. Swan not only demonstrated remarkable accuracy in his visions but also helped create a replicable methodology. This was revolutionary. For the first time, the invisible could be taught, practiced, and evaluated. Mystery transformed into technique, and technique evolved into a weapon. The collaboration between Swan, the scientists, and the army led to a stage-based model. The clairvoyant would receive coordinates or simply the intention of a target location. In silence, with their eyes closed, they would begin to describe images, shapes, textures, sounds, and even emotions associated with the location in question. The sessions were recorded, analyzed, and often compared with actual data obtained from satellites. The results were astonishing. Even without any prior information, the visionaries could accurately describe structures, geographical features, devices, and even real-time activities with remarkable precision. It wasn't perfection, but it was good enough to influence military decisions. The program gained momentum. Secret funding flowed in. Military bases were repurposed to train viewers, as the practitioners of the technique were called. One of the most notable was Joseph McMoneagle, who received the Medal of Honor for his work on the project. He participated in over 450 operational sessions, describing secret Soviet locations, predicting troop movements, and even identifying hidden technologies. His later testimony is among the most detailed and unsettling accounts of the capabilities of remote viewing. He asserts, without hesitation, that the human mind can transcend the linearity of time, accessing the past and future as if they were points on the same tapestry. For the military, this was not merely a curiosity, it was a strategic advantage. Over the years, the Stargate project has undergone various phases, names, and administrations. Its existence was consistently denied, cloaked in vague terminology and disguised budgets. Yet internally, the results revealed a disconcerting truth. Consciousness is not confined to the body. Remote viewing not only worked, but seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. Some sessions reported objects that had yet to be built, future events that would unfold years later, and even contacts with non-human forms of consciousness. This unnerved even the most pragmatic commanders. What began as a weapon transformed into a mirror. But like any secret program, the Stargate project faced internal resistance. Some in the scientific community mocked the research, dismissing the findings as mere coincidence or the power of suggestion. However, the issue was that the successes kept coming. The statistical accuracy was higher than chance could account for. Despite all the criticism, the program remained active for over 2 decades. Years later, even the Department of Defense admitted that the data gathered during remote viewing sessions had been used in real operations. Still, in 1995, the project was officially shut down, or at least, that was the story that was shared. The truth, as always, remains shrouded in mystery. Many former agents claim that the program continued unofficially, splintered into private sectors and covert operations. The knowledge wasn't lost, it was simply relocated to places where visibility was impossible. Private companies, hired by governments and corporations, began training visionaries for commercial purposes, industrial espionage, and market trend forecasting. The mind, now trained and documented, had become a strategic asset, a silent treasure guarded by the few who knew how to wield it. For the general public, the existence of the Stargate project was met with skepticism and disbelief. The masses, conditioned to believe only in what they can see and touch, viewed the revelation as just another quirk of the secretive world of warfare. However, for those who have always sensed that the human mind holds something greater, this confirmation was a call to action. If government spent millions to explore this ability, why shouldn't it be studied by everyone? If ordinary people could access distant places and events simply through the power of focus, what does that say about our true nature? The story of remote viewing in a military context is more than just a hidden chapter of modern espionage. It serves as an unintentional testament to the idea that humans are more than mere flesh and logic. The Cold War unveiled, beneath layers of fear, a profound spiritual truth. We are expanding consciousness. Even the greatest empires came to realize, in their own ways, that the most powerful battlefield is not out there, but within. Inside each of us lies a door. Those who dared to open it found that the invisible was never far away. It was simply waiting to be acknowledged. Behind the mystery, mystique, and military apparatus lies a process. Remote viewing, while it may seem magical or supernatural to the untrained eye, is a systematic practice with clear steps, defined protocols, and foundations that are rooted in both spiritual understanding and the realms of physics and the mind. It is not a chaotic experience born from random daydreams or fleeting intuitive flashes. On the contrary, its effectiveness stems from discipline, emotional neutrality, and the ability to quiet the ego, allowing pure perception to emerge. The secret of remote viewing does not lie in trying to force images or conclusions, but in an inner surrender to a deep and unconditioned attention that opens up to the informational field of the universe. In this context, consciousness acts like a receiver for subtle frequencies. Just as a radio can tune into different stations without moving physically, a mind trained in remote viewing can connect with non-local coordinates, accessing information that transcends space and time. It's crucial to understand that this process isn't simply a product of imagination in the usual sense. Rather, it stems from a refined perception that emerges when internal noise, such as doubts, expectations, and judgments, is quieted. What then manifests are fragments of realities that, while distant in the physical realm, are accessible within the field of consciousness. The method developed by Ingo Swann and systematized in the military protocol known as CRV, controlled remote viewing, is divided into stages. Each stage corresponds to a deeper level of connection with the target. Initially, the viewer, the practitioner of remote viewing, receives a set of coordinates or simply a generic designation. They are not consciously aware of what they are visualizing, and this is intentional. By not having prior information, the rational brain does not interfere. The goal is to obtain a pure response, free from analysis. The practitioner then enters a state of relaxed focus and begins to record sensations, words, shapes, textures, sounds, and temperatures. At first, these are vague impressions. However, as they delve deeper, clearer images, detailed descriptions, and even physical sketches of the target begin to emerge. Contrary to what many people believe, remote viewing doesn't require an individual to enter a deep trance or mystical state of consciousness. This technique can be practiced while fully awake, with notes taken in real time. This aspect has surprised military personnel. When trained, the mind can achieve remarkable feats without losing its conscious state. What changes is not the level of consciousness, but the quality of attention. It involves a shift from the usual focus on the immediate external world to perceiving more subtle layers of information. Many practitioners describe the process as a quiet whisper that grows stronger as the mind becomes more receptive. From an energetic perspective, what happens can be likened to an expansion of one's own identity. The practitioner stops perceiving themselves as a body in a fixed location and begins to recognize themselves as a point of limitless consciousness, capable of intentionally navigating through layers of reality. This movement isn't physical, but it is profoundly real. Records kept by viewers show that, even without any prior information, it's possible to accurately describe places, capture real-time movements, and even access hidden content behind physical barriers. In this state, the mind does not acknowledge walls, continents, oceans, or linear time. It directly connects with what exists. Another key aspect of remote viewing is emotional neutrality. The more the practitioner tries to force a response, the more they disrupt the process. Clarity comes from surrendering to the experience. The protocol teaches that the practitioner should simply note whatever comes to mind without interpreting or analyzing it. Interpretation happens later by a different team. This approach ensures that the information gathered is cleaner and less tainted by personal biases. The viewer thus becomes a channel, not a fortune teller, but a human antenna tuned into a broader field of consciousness. In the realm of theoretical physics, there are ongoing attempts to explain this phenomenon through concepts like quantum entanglement and the unified field. According to these theories, All the information in the universe is interconnected at a fundamental level. The human mind, by accessing specific states of consciousness, could function as a sensor for this informational field. It's as if everything is already recorded in an invisible matrix, and remote viewing is the process of reading from that matrix. While traditional science still struggles to embrace this idea, experiments in parapsychology, particle physics, and neuroscience are beginning to suggest possibilities that were once dismissed. The ongoing practice of remote viewing also transforms the practitioner. It's not just about enhancing technical skills, it reshapes their perception of reality. When one realizes that time isn't linear and that space isn't a barrier, they begin to break free from many constraints that limit their experiences. They come to understand that consciousness isn't confined to the brain but transcends it. The feeling of separation diminishes. Fear of the unknown gives way to deep curiosity. Spirituality intertwines with science, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. In this sense, remote viewing becomes a tool for self-discovery as powerful as any advanced meditation. Interestingly, the process also demands humility. Information isn't always clear, and things don't always go as planned. Practitioners must learn to navigate uncertainty, setbacks, and the pitfalls of the ego. This makes the journey of remote viewing not just a skill to be mastered, but a path of inner transformation. As the mind is trained to embrace the unknown, it also learns to trust. And in that quiet trust, it uncovers truths that cannot be reached through ordinary means. That's why, even though it's studied by military personnel, remote viewing remains fundamentally spiritual. It requires presence, dedication, and attentive listening. It shows that there is something beyond words, something that communicates in silence through symbols, sensations, and impressions. When the mind is free from noise, it becomes a mirror of reality. In this state, reality reveals itself as a vast, vibrant, interconnected field where everything that was, is, and will be is already accessible, just waiting to be seen. Remote viewing ceased to be merely a military curiosity or a hidden theory the moment it began producing verifiable, tangible, and documented results. What many sought to dismiss as delusion, coincidence, or subjective illusion gradually solidified into concrete evidence, official reports, and operations that simply could not have succeeded through conventional means. The Stargate program, among others, generated numerous cases that challenged traditional logic and prompted even the most skeptical to reassess their worldview. These are not myths or urban legends. They are documented records that have been analyzed and often declassified, demonstrating that the human mind, when properly trained, can access something that transcends our understanding of reality. One of the most notable cases involves Joseph McMoneagle, one of the most renowned remote viewing agents in the U.S. Army. In 1979, he was tasked with visualizing an unknown Soviet facility. With no prior information, only generic coordinates to go on, McMoneagle described a massive underground structure with large doors, surrounded by a heavily fortified security installation. He indicated that the site was under construction and would house a previously unseen class of submarine. Years later, satellite images confirmed not only the exact location of the facility, but also the construction of the Typhoon submarine, the largest in the world to date, precisely as he had described, including internal details that could only have been known by someone who had physically been there. Another striking example occurred when a lost plane was located in Africa. A small passenger aircraft had vanished, and despite conventional search efforts, there was no sign of its whereabouts. A viewer from the project was called in to try to gather useful information. He described a landscape with specific rock formations, detailed the position of the wreckage, and even indicated that there were survivors. The description seemed far-fetched. Nevertheless, the authorities dispatched a team to the indicated location. To everyone's surprise, the plane was exactly where the viewer had envisioned it. There was wreckage, and as predicted, 2 passengers were alive, waiting for rescue. For those involved, it was an undeniable revelation of the power of remote viewing. Cases like this occur at various levels. On another occasion, Ingo Swann was challenged to describe the characteristics of a planet in the solar system that had yet to be visited by Earth probes. He made notes about Jupiter, detailing particle belts, thin rings around the planet, and atmospheric properties that would only be confirmed many years later by the Voyager probes. What was most impressive wasn't just the accuracy, but the fact that this information contradicted what science believed at the time. When the probe data arrived, the scientific community was stunned. What Swan had described with his mind, from a distance, turned out to be real. Even in situations involving direct threats to national security, remote viewing proved its worth. During a sensitive mission, the United States was attempting to locate a hostage held by terrorists in a foreign country. No data was available and traditional methods had failed. One of the viewers was called in to try to identify the location. He described an ordinary-looking house, noted the number of rooms, the color of the interior walls, the presence of guards, and even a hidden staircase leading to a basement. The operation was authorized based on this information. Once again, the details were accurate. The hostage was rescued alive. The human mind had outperformed technology. These results, although hidden from the public for decades, began to emerge as the programs were being shut down. Numerous documents were released under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, revealing transcripts, analyses, and reports that confirmed the operational successes of remote viewing. While many cases remain classified, the ones that have been disclosed are enough to challenge the notion that it's all just an illusion. After all, how can one explain that a mind, without any physical access, can accurately describe locations thousands of miles away, with a precision that exceeds mere chance? There are also striking reports about the ability of remote viewing to predict future events. One viewer foresaw the launch of an experimental missile by a foreign nation just days before it occurred. Another described an ecological disaster at a nuclear plant even before the engineers were aware of any faults. In both instances, the predictions were initially dismissed, yet they unfolded exactly as described. These incidents raised unsettling questions among the scientists involved. Is human consciousness tapping into a temporal matrix that allows for the perception of future events? If so, is time merely an illusion? And what else might we uncover if we explored this potential further? There are also reports that go beyond the boundaries of our planet. Some viewers have been invited to focus on locations like the Moon or Mars. What they reported surprised even the most open-minded researchers. Ancient structures, ruins, and signs of intelligent life. All of this emerged during the sessions. It's clear that this information hasn't been officially recognized by space agencies, but the records are available. They suggest that consciousness may transcend not only earthly time and space, but also the limits of our own understanding of existence. In these instances, the mind becomes not just a tool for observation, but a means of cosmic exploration. Over time, private companies began to take an interest in this skill. Corporations employed trained visionaries to identify investment opportunities, forecast market trends, and even locate mineral deposits. The practical application of remote viewing started to be seen as a strategic advantage. Once again, the barriers between the real and the possible began to crumble. When the mind demonstrates the ability to access data at such depth, the entire logic underpinning traditional systems of power and information starts to destabilize. The impossible ceases to be impossible, and that changes everything. For those who study these cases in depth, the conclusion is inescapable. Remote viewing works, not with absolute perfection, no human tool does, but with impressive and replicable effectiveness. It requires preparation, training, ethics, and humility. Yet its results demonstrate that the mind is an instrument of immeasurable reach. These real-life episodes reveal that when consciousness is finely tuned, it becomes a master key, capable of unlocking any door, anywhere, at any time, and perhaps in any dimension. The common understanding of reality is tied to the notion that we are limited physical bodies, existing within a linear timeline, confined to the present moment. The past is merely a memory, the future is speculation, and the present is the only fixed point we can truly grasp. However, for practitioners of remote viewing, this perspective is a convenient illusion, a functional narrative for survival, but not for uncovering the truth. When the mind is trained, quieted, and attuned to the universal field of consciousness, it reveals something astonishing. Time is not a straight line. Space is not a prison. Consciousness is a free traveler, capable of moving through the past, present, and future as easily as one moves through the rooms of a house. This ability to navigate space-time with the mind radically redefines what it means to be alive. Accounts from experienced viewers suggest that perception extends beyond the here and now. In many sessions, practitioners have captured historical events in detail that aren't found in official records. Some are able to visualize moments from antiquity, describing lost cities, forgotten battles, and civilizations that vanished without a trace. What's most remarkable is that over the years, archaeologists have confirmed details revealed by these visionaries that had never been documented before. It's as if the past isn't behind us, but rather accessible in another layer of consciousness, a living memory resonating in a realm beyond chronological time. If the past can be seen, then the future can also be touched. This, perhaps, is the most unsettling aspect of remote viewing for the rational mind. The notion that the future exists at some level, ready to be accessed, challenges linear logic and raises profound questions about fate, free will, and causality. Nevertheless, countless remote viewing sessions have reported future events with remarkable accuracy. Financial crises, geopolitical movements, technological innovations, and even natural disasters have been predicted months or years in advance. These insights don't come as fixed scripts, but rather as probabilistic impressions from a realm where time is flexible. In this expanded state, the mind seems to function as an observer outside of the timeline. It doesn't travel through time like a body moving through a tunnel. Instead, it accesses multiple points simultaneously, as if it exists beyond the chronological structure. This phenomenon is often referred to as non-local consciousness, a form of perception that transcends conventional space and time. From this perspective, time is merely a mental construct, a tool for organizing sensory experiences, rather than a real limitation on consciousness. When the mind is free from identification with the body and the ego, it becomes capable of touching parallel realities, alternative timelines, and future possibilities that coexist with the present. There are documented cases of viewers accessing events that never actually occurred, likely futures that were either avoided or altered by subsequent decisions. This suggests that the future is, to some extent, malleable, yet it exists within a quantum field of possibilities. When the human mind enters this field, it acts as an observer that collapses potential outcomes into reality. This understanding brings remote viewing closer to quantum physics, particularly the many worlds interpretation and the wave function collapse theory. Consciousness through observation creates, and in creating, it selects a path of reality from countless options. Another fascinating aspect is that practitioners of remote viewing, when mentally traveling to the past or future, often report not just visual images but also emotions, atmospheres, and moods connected to the events they observe. This journey is not merely informational, it's experiential. The viewer can feel the pain of an ancient battlefield, the despair of a civilization on the brink of collapse, or the euphoria of a scientific discovery that has yet to be revealed to the world. These accounts suggest that space-time is not a lifeless structure, but a vibrant, living organism that communicates through the vibrational language of consciousness. Each moment in time is a living cell within this framework, capable of being touched, heard, and understood. The practice of remote viewing has also revealed that certain locations seem to function as energetic portals, allowing access to multiple timelines. Sites deemed sacred by ancient traditions, such as pyramids, stone circles, caves, and temples, often emerge during sessions as convergence points for different times and realities. This suggests the existence of a spiritual geography on the planet, where physical space intertwines with subtle space-time. These locations could be seen as temporal crossroads, where the mind can more easily expand and perceive layers that remain hidden in everyday life. Additionally, there are indications that remote viewing may transcend the boundaries of human time, allowing access to realities beyond death or before reincarnation. Some practitioners have reported experiences where they perceived consciousnesses in transition, non-physical environments where spiritual decisions are made prior to birth, or where lessons are integrated after death. While these descriptions fall outside the realm of traditional scientific inquiry, they resonate with ancient narratives from esoteric and mystical traditions. In these accounts, time is portrayed as a dynamic, non-linear cycle, where the past and future coexist in the eternal present of the spirit. This perception of time as an ocean of possibilities profoundly impacts the practitioner's life. They come to realize that their existence isn't confined to a predetermined path, but rather is part of a vast network where every choice resonates in multiple directions. In this sense, remote viewing becomes a tool for spiritual empowerment. By accessing time with their mind, individuals understand that they can shape it through their decisions. They stop being prisoners of events and become co-creators of their journey. The future, viewed from outside of time, is not something to be awaited, but something to be consciously built. And perhaps the most transformative aspect of all this is the realization that time, as we know it, is an illusion designed for us to experience life more deeply. When this illusion is seen clearly, a new inner freedom emerges. The mind no longer fears the past because it can understand it. It no longer fears the future because it can navigate it. And in doing so, it returns to the present with expanded wisdom, ready to live with presence and intention. Traveling through time in the mind isn't an escape from life. It's a way to understand it in its entirety. For decades, remote viewing has been seen as a niche field limited to military operations and mystical practices. However, contemporary scientific advancements are beginning to provide a more solid foundation for understanding what truly occurs when a human mind transcends time and space to access non-local information. Far from being a supernatural phenomenon, remote viewing emerges as a natural expression of mental and spiritual capabilities that lie dormant within all of us. The challenge lies not in proving its existence, but in accepting that traditional scientific models, which rely solely on dense matter, are no longer adequate to explain reality. When modern science dares to look beyond the visible, it starts to uncover precisely what ancient traditions have always asserted: that everything is interconnected and that consciousness is the essence of all existence. In neuroscience labs, a deeper understanding is emerging regarding the relationship between brain states and the ability to perceive subtle information. Studies using electroencephalograms and functional magnetic resonance imaging reveal that during deep meditative states or remote viewing experiences, certain regions of the brain achieve coherence, while other areas, such as the prefrontal cortex, linked to judgment and control, show reduced activity. This indicates that the optimal state for non-local perception is one of relaxed attention, where logical thinking is temporarily quieted, allowing a more direct form of knowledge to surface. In these states, the mind does not interpret, it simply perceives. Moreover, various studies indicate the existence of a field consciousness, a state in which the brain operates not merely as an internal information processor, but as a receiver attuned to a broader network. This hypothesis, which resonates with theories like Rupert Sheldrake's morphic field, suggests that there is a collective reservoir of information accessible through resonance. When the human mind aligns vibrationally with this field, it could potentially access information from any point in space-time. This could explain why different practitioners, even when isolated, can tap into the same data with remarkable accuracy. They are not imagining, they are tuning in. In the realm of physics, quantum theories open even more doors to understanding this phenomenon. Quantum entanglement, where two particles, no matter how far apart, remain instantaneously connected, serves as one of the most powerful analogies for explaining remote viewing. If everything in the universe was once connected at a singular point, and if those connections persist at a deeper level of reality, then it's not just possible but natural for the mind, as a conscious manifestation of this field, to access information from anywhere. Quantum physics, which once seemed so far removed from spirituality, is beginning to converge with it at the edge of the invisible. Another important concept is that of the quantum vacuum, which science no longer views as an empty void, but rather as a vibrant sea of energy and information. In this vacuum, theorists like Nassim Haramein suggest that all the information of the universe, past, present, and future, is encoded. Remote viewing in this context can be seen as a way to read this living matrix, a conscious download of data that already exists, but is beyond the reach of our normal senses. This idea resonates with the ancient notion of Akasha, the ethereal record of everything that has ever existed and will ever exist. What was once considered mysticism is now beginning to take on a scientific language. It's also important to consider the role of the heart in this process. Studies from the Institute of Heart Math show that the heart generates an electromagnetic field that is much more powerful than that of the brain, and this field expands and interacts with the environment in ways that are still not fully understood. In states of heart coherence, when emotions and thoughts are in harmony, intuition and expanded perception significantly increase. This suggests that remote viewing is not just a mental function, but rather a synergy between the mind and the heart. It's a state of complete alignment of the self, a frequency of access that requires presence, calmness, and pure intention. Many skeptical scientists argue that these phenomena cannot be rigorously replicated. However, this criticism stems from a reductionist model that overlooks the subjective nature of consciousness. By definition, internal experience cannot be measured with the same tools used to weigh objects. This doesn't invalidate it. It simply calls for new methods of investigation. The science of the future, if it aims to understand remote viewing and similar phenomena, will need to develop a new epistemology, a way of knowing that includes the subject as part of the experiment, rather than just a detached observer. After all, in the deeper reality, the observer influences the observed. In remote viewing, the observer merges with the target. Another line of research that explores these phenomena is the concept of consciousness as a non-local phenomenon. Mind philosophers like David Chalmers have proposed that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain, but rather a fundamental property of the universe, akin to gravity or light. This idea, known as Panpsychism, suggests that everything possesses some level of consciousness, and that our minds, in certain states, can interact with this conscious fabric that makes up the universe. This might also explain why many practitioners of remote viewing report feeling connected to a greater intelligence during their sessions. It's not just information they access, it's a presence. What we have then is a fascinating intersection between ancient spirituality and modern science. Mystical traditions have long asserted that everything is interconnected, that time is an illusion, and that the mind can access any point in creation. Meanwhile, science is beginning to uncover evidence that points in the same direction, albeit using different language. This reconnection between science and spirit is not a regression. It's an expansion. It's the acknowledgement that to fully understand the human experience, we must look beyond the material. We need to view consciousness as the main character, not just a supporting role. Even with so much evidence, resistance remains, not due to a lack of data, but out of fear of what it implies. Accepting that remote viewing works means acknowledging that humans possess abilities that challenge our current models of society, education, and power. It's recognizing that the mind can be free, and for a system built on control, freedom is the greatest threat. That's why, despite research, results, and testimonials, the phenomenon continues to be marginalized. Yet the truth, as always, endures, silent but alive, invisible but present, and it awaits those who dare to see. Non-local perception isn't a gift reserved for rare mediums or government-trained agents. Instead, it's an inherent ability within all humans, a dormant function of consciousness that can be awakened by anyone willing to put in the discipline, dedication, and clear intention. Remote viewing doesn't require blind faith or adherence to any doctrine or mystical belief. It's a path of practical and profound self-discovery, accessible to those ready to quiet their mental chatter, expand the boundaries of what they believe is possible, and open their minds to a form of intelligence that doesn't conform to traditional ways of thinking. This isn't an instant process or a mental trick. It's an inner journey that demands seriousness, humility, and commitment. The first step in developing remote viewing is purifying your attention. In a world overwhelmed by stimuli, conflicting messages, anxiety, and information overload, the human mind loses its clarity and sensitivity. Before attempting to see the invisible, it's essential to learn how to perceive the visible with precision. This involves cultivating full presence, learning to observe without judgment, and quieting the inner voice that interprets before it truly perceives. In this context, meditation is not just a secondary technique, it is the fundamental foundation for training the mind. It's not merely about emptying your thoughts, but about training your mind to be receptive, stable, and non-reactive, like a calm lake that clearly reflects everything that touches its surface. Next, it's important to understand the role of intention. Consciousness isn't a random laser, it moves in the direction it's pointed. However, this direction can't be forced or manipulated by ego-driven desires. A clear yet detached intention is the key. In remote viewing training, practitioners are given targets that are hidden from the conscious mind, numerical coordinates, code words, or even sealed envelopes. This prevents the rational mind from interfering. The training focuses on trusting what arises, recording everything without filtering, and learning to differentiate between pure perception and mental projection. Over time, the distinction becomes clear. True perception carries a distinct vibrational quality. It is neutral, precise, serene, and devoid of emotion. An effective way to activate this ability is through the use of sensory records. The practitioner should start by describing only primary sensations: temperature, texture, shape, sound, density. No names or interpretations allowed. As one becomes accustomed to this raw language of perception, the mind frees itself from the need to explain. Then, more complex impressions begin to emerge: emotions, images, symbols, colors, events. These pieces of information come in layers, as if consciousness is peeling back reality to reveal its core. Consistent practice sharpens this skill, much like a musician trains their ear to distinguish even the faintest sounds. With practice, the mind becomes a sensitive and precise instrument. The body also plays a crucial role in this process. While remote viewing manifests as a mental phenomenon, it is deeply connected to the physical state of the practitioner. Factors like diet, sleep, breathing, and stress levels directly influence the clarity of perception. A mind that is intoxicated, rushed, or unstable will struggle to reach the necessary states to access subtle information. Therefore, practices such as mindful breathing, intermittent fasting, silent walks in nature, and maintaining a simple, orderly routine are recommended. In this journey, the body becomes a temple and an antenna, a sacred support for expanding consciousness. Another key element is the session journal. Every serious practitioner keeps a detailed record of their insights, comparing them to the actual outcomes after the target is revealed. This process is essential for fine-tuning perception, correcting deviations, and building confidence. As practitioners track their own progress, they come to understand that remote viewing isn't a mysterious phenomenon, but rather a trainable and measurable process. The mind learns from mistakes, adapts over time, and develops remarkable accuracy. Consistent practice shows that what seems invisible isn't out of reach. It simply requires focus and dedication. Emotional state is also a crucial factor. Remote viewing requires emotional neutrality. Intense feelings, expectations, fears, or euphoria can cloud clarity of perception. Therefore, the practitioner must cultivate an inner stance of equanimity, much like that of an advanced meditator or a wise contemplative. This doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. Rather, it's about maintaining an open, receptive, and non-possessive presence. True perception arises not from emotion, but from silent awareness. This is one of the greatest lessons of the journey, learning to perceive without reacting, to see without desiring, and to know without possessing. Group practice is also a powerful accelerator. When two or more practitioners train together, the intensity of the experience increases significantly. The collective mind creates a stronger field where insights deepen and learning accelerates. Well-trained remote viewing groups can access targets with astonishing accuracy, often uncovering details that fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Collective practice also allows each individual to recognize their patterns, build their confidence, and learn from the successes and mistakes of others. While the journey is personal, it expands when shared. Complementary tools such as harmonic music, binaural frequencies, sacred geometries, and breathing techniques can also be used to prepare the practitioner's vibrational field. While they aren't essential, these practices help quiet the superficial mind and open internal portals of perception. It's important to remember that no technique can replace pure intention and loving discipline. True unlocking of remote viewing occurs when the practitioner commits to their own expansion without seeking power, fame, or control. The practice should arise from a genuine desire to know the truth, to connect with the whole, and to consciously participate in the invisible tapestry of existence. Over time, the practitioner will come to realize that remote viewing is not just a tool for accessing data, but a profound spiritual journey. It dismantles certainties, softens the ego, and reveals the interconnectedness of all things. Perception expands not only outward but inward as well. The practitioner begins to see their own life with greater clarity, to intuit decisions with deeper wisdom, and to feel others with increased empathy. Remote viewing transforms into an extension of compassion, serving as a bridge between the individual mind and the unified field of consciousness. In this state, every perception becomes an act of service, and every vision is an offering to the truth. Anyone can walk this path. There are no secret initiations or special powers involved. It all comes down to the mind, silence, and the desire to see beyond. Those who persevere find that by crossing the veil of illusion, they discover not just information, but themselves. Remote viewing then transforms from an end goal into a mirror, and in that mirror, one realizes that there has never been a separation between the visible and the invisible. Only layers of perception, only stages of awakening. A remote viewing, although it emerged from the shadows of a silent war waged within the secret corridors of conflicting governments, has evolved into something far greater than just a tool for espionage or an intriguing psychic phenomenon. It marks a turning point in human history, a boundary that, once crossed, prevents us from reverting to the limited and fragmented view of humanity as mere flesh and blood machines, confined by 5 senses and an unchanging linear time. The existence and effectiveness of remote viewing clearly indicate that consciousness is not merely a byproduct of biology, but rather the very fabric of reality itself. By touching this truth, even if just with the tips of our fingers, we unlock a door that transforms everything we know about who we are, where we come from, and, most importantly, where we are headed. Throughout the centuries, great masters and visionaries have sought to convey a profound truth. There is more to us than meets the eye. The mind is a sacred instrument, and within each of us lies a path back to the infinite. The legacy of remote viewing, when freed from its military applications and embraced by the collective consciousness, emerges as an invaluable spiritual heritage. It represents a reconnection with our cosmic origins, tapping into a lineage of wisdom that predates empires and temples, tracing back to the very birth of consciousness in the universe. Each time a human transcends the boundaries of ordinary perception and connects with the unified field of information, they are, in essence, experiencing what traditions refer to as enlightenment, seeing reality as it truly is, rather than how it has been taught to be. Today, after more than 50 years of studies, experiments, and personal experiences from thousands of practitioners around the globe, it's impossible to deny that something monumental is unfolding. The human mind, once understood merely as a reflection of the brain, is now recognized as a cosmic antenna, revealing itself as a channel to the whole. This realization calls for a radical shift in all the structures of civilization. In education, the focus must shift from rote memorization to the art of perception. In healthcare, we will be able to access deep-rooted causes directly through consciousness. In science, the subject must be embraced as part of the object of study, and in spirituality, belief will transform into direct, accessible, and universal experience. The future of the human mind lies not just in technological enhancement, but in reconnecting with our essential nature. It's not enough to have intelligent machines if our consciousness remains dormant. True progress comes from awakening the inner mind, the part of us that can transcend time, perceive the invisible field, and communicate with the universe in its silent language. Remote viewing is one of the most direct paths to this reconnection, as it requires practitioners not to have faith, but discipline, not dogma, but awareness. In this process, something greater unfolds. The individual stops being a mere spectator of reality and becomes a co-creator. They come to understand that reality responds to consciousness, and with that realization, everything changes. Imagine a world where children learn early on to quiet their minds, to listen to their inner perceptions, and to find answers on their own. Picture companies driven not just by numbers, but by refined intuitions and decisions rooted in expanded awareness. Envision leaders connected to a universal field of wisdom, capable of seeing beyond the immediate, sensing the collective, and acting with clarity and compassion. This isn't a utopia, it's the natural evolution of humanity awakening to the vastness of existence. Each practice of remote viewing is a seed of this new era, a crack in the old structure that believed only what is visible is real. Many people ask, if all of this is possible, why hasn't it become common? Why do we still live in a world where the mind is underestimated, where the unseen is mocked, and where intuition is dismissed? The answer is painful yet simple. Control. A world where every individual can access information on their own no longer needs to be governed by external narratives. It doesn't require intermediaries, gurus, or institutions to dictate what is true. Remote viewing, when truly understood, breaks the chains of dependency. It empowers. That's why it has been hidden, ridiculed, and marginalized. But the truth cannot remain concealed forever. The time for awakening has already begun. The return of this knowledge to the public sphere is inevitable. Across the globe, schools, courses, study groups, and communities are emerging to practice and share their experiences with remote viewing. What was once a secretive practice is now becoming a quiet yet growing movement. Collective consciousness is undergoing a transformation. Those who feel the call to see beyond are discovering the paths, techniques, and mentors they need. There's no stopping this tide. The wave of perception is rising, and it will carry away the walls of the old world, built on the denial of the invisible. The true power of remote vision goes beyond merely seeing distant places or predicting future events. It's about remembering that we are more than what we've been led to believe. Remembering that we belong to something greater, a living conscious network that supports all of existence. Remembering that within us lies an endless source of wisdom, connection, and insight. By tapping into this source, humanity begins to live with a new purpose, not just to survive, but to awaken, not merely to consume, but to co-create, not just to exist, but to truly perceive. Perhaps at its core, remote viewing isn't about seeing something out there, but about discovering something within. Every target accessed, every vision received, every confirmation that challenges conventional logic, these are merely reflections of a deeper truth, that we are expanding consciousness, that our origins are cosmic, and our destiny is infinite. The future of the human mind isn't inscribed in laboratories, books, or dogmas. It's being written right now, in the silence of those who dare to see with their hearts, listen with their souls, and perceive with the entirety of their being. Mind Unfettered, it's your turn now. If you could travel anywhere in time or space with your consciousness, where would you go first? Share your thoughts in the comments. Together, we don't just envision possibilities, we create realities. Each individual perception strengthens the collective field. We are awakening as one body, one mind, one consciousness. What if I told you that Jesus left behind a hidden map for enlightenment in 33 coded steps? Click on the video that appears on your screen now. The Book of 33 Steps, the secret path to enlightenment left by Jesus. This journey doesn't end here, it has only just begun. We are all mind unfettered, and the universe is just waiting for you to remember.